I want you to imagine the following scenario. A 10-year-old child comes back home from school in tears. "What's wrong?" asks his mother. "During recess today, some kids in my class made fun of my glasses, took them from me and started trying them on, and started joking around about how I was blind. Then one of them pushed me to the ground." "Oh no," exclaimed the mother. "I'm so sorry this happened to you, baby. Did you tell the teacher?" "No, the kids told me that telling the teacher is what girls do, so I didn't do it." "Nonsense," says the mother. "We're calling the school and sorting this out right now." "Hold on just a second." The child's father intervenes. "Buddy, you have to stand up for yourself. You can't just let these kids pick on you." He turns to his wife. "Honey, if we call the school, this won't solve anything. He'll just be known as the kid that's a tattletale, and more importantly, he won't learn how to stand up to kids like this. Even if these kids stop bullying him, it's just a matter of time before another bully takes their place and we're stuck in this situation all over again. It's not his fault, and he doesn't deserve this. It's no time to teach him a lesson. Other kids bullied and hurt him, and it's our responsibility as parents to protect him from kids like this. We need to call the school to make sure these kids are punished and their parents informed so this doesn't happen again." "No, that'll make the problem worse. This has already happened in the past and we already tried your way. And look, it happened again. Just with different kids this time. This time, we're going to do it my way." Father turns to the kid. "Look, buddy, are you sick and tired of being picked on at school?" "Yeah, Dad, I hate it. I hate it so much." "How would you feel if next time these bullies pushed you, you pushed them back and they were the ones that fell to the ground instead of you?" "Excuse me?" the wife exclaims. "I wouldn't like that, Dad. Don't fight violence with violence. That's what they teach me in school. That's what Mom taught me too." "Well, that's not how the real world works, buddy. When you become a grown-up, the bullies don't magically disappear. They're still going to be there. Except when you're grown up, you won't have Mommy and Daddy to protect you anymore. You're going to have to deal with them yourself. So we need to start early and help you be able to defend yourself now. My buddy runs a martial arts gym. We're going to go there right now and sign you up." "Martial arts? Like fighting? So more kids are going to push me and beat me up today too?" As the kid begins to cry, the wife steps in. "See what you've done? You've hurt him. Why are you trying to change him? He's a sensitive boy and that's what makes him special and unique. And you're just trying to change him into a bully himself by teaching him how to be violent. And now you've made him even more scared. There, honey. It's okay. Daddy isn't going to take you to that gym if you don't want to go." "I don't want to go," exclaims the kid. "Okay, that's final then. I'm going to call the school and then I'm going to cook you up your favorite food for dinner because you're my special little boy." "Mac and cheese?" "Yup." "Yay, thanks, Mommy." Now I want to ask you a simple question. Who cares more about the well-being of the child? The mother or the father? I want you to keep this question in mind as we explore the concept of love, more specifically compassion, and how men and women express it differently. Is the masculine form of compassion and the feminine form of compassion equally valid? Is one superior to the other? How do these different forms of compassion affect a child's development and worldview once they become adults? And if a child received too much feminine compassion or too much masculine compassion as a child, or not enough of either one, how would that affect how he or she became once they reach adulthood? Can people's attitudes toward things like self-improvement, toxic masculinity, and the popularity of feminism and its polar opposite, the manosphere, be explained by what form of compassion that they received more of as a child? We will be attempting to tackle all of these questions within this video. At the beginning, I showed a conflict between a mother and a father on how to properly help their son with his bullies at school. The mom simply accepted her son for how he is, didn't really challenge him to stand up to his bullies, and rather her motherly instincts told her to simply defend her child from harm. The father, on the other hand, challenged his son to improve and become better in order to not just stand up to his current bullies, but also so that he has what it takes to stand up for himself once he leaves the proverbial nest. Throughout this video, we're going to do a thought experiment of how this kid, let's just call him Norm, ends up as an adult if his parents divorced and raised him on their own. On one hand, we have someone raising him in a fully feminine, compassion-filled household, and the other, a fully masculine, compassion-filled household. By comparing and contrasting these two scenarios, we will hopefully be able to come to a better understanding as to why many men gravitate toward men like this, whereas these types of guys seem not to resonate in the slightest with the majority of women or more feminine-driven men. Before I move on, I want to make a disclaimer. Colloquially, calling a man feminine is commonly used as a pejorative, as something contemptible or worthy of scorn. That's not what I'm doing here. If I call a man or a woman more feminine, all I'm simply stating is that they are more driven by feminine energy and as an extension of that, feminine compassion. I will refrain from making a positive or negative value judgment on the terms feminine or masculine, as I believe these are morally neutral concepts. And as a side note, I think the conversation around men, women, and how we interact with one another in a healthy manner is negatively affected when we weaponize these terms as a pejorative. For example, calling a man very feminine as an insult, or a woman very masculine as an insult. Within the framework that I will present here in this video and expand upon in future videos, describing a man or a woman as more feminine or more masculine is a morally neutral statement. So, with all that said, let's dive into scenario number 1, where Norm is raised exclusively by his mother instead of his father. Shortly after the heated argument that Norm's parents had with one another, his parents' relationship completely fell apart. They argued constantly, mostly over how to raise their child properly, and so within just 1 year they separated and filed for divorce, with the mother getting full custody of her 10-year-old son. We will now run a thought experiment of how Norm's life turns out from his teenage years to becoming an adult. Fast forward 3 years after the initial bullying incident, Norm is now 13 years old and in middle school. He recently began his growth spurt and has started taking an interest in girls. The first school dance is coming up, and he seeks advice from his mother on how to ask his crush out to the school dance. "Hey honey, I got an email from school that the school dance is coming up. Are you going?" "Yeah, Mom, I have a girl I really want to ask out. She's so beautiful, but I don't know what to say to her, and I don't know if she likes me back." "It's okay, honey. That's normal. If you just stay true to yourself, I know she'll see what a wonderful young man you are. You just need to tell her how you feel about her." "Okay, Mom, I'm going to ask her out this week." "Hey honey, did you ask the girl out yet?" "No, Mom, I haven't gotten around to it yet." "Hey honey, did you ask the girl out yet?" "No, Mom, I haven't gotten around to it yet." "But the dance is coming up soon, isn't it?" "Yeah, but I've had so many things going on that I haven't really thought much of it." "Hey honey, have you asked the girl out yet?" "No, Mom, I haven't. Get off my case, jeez. Apparently she already got asked out anyway." "Oh, do you think you'll ask some other girl instead?" "No, the rest of the girls in my grade are ugly, so I'm not even gonna go." "Okay, honey, what will you do instead during the dance?"
Why do you care?
"I just don't want you to feel left out."
Who the hell said I felt left out?
Language, Norm.
I don't care. The dance is stupid anyway.
"Okay, honey, I know you're upset, so let's go to the store and buy that new video game you said you wanted that you can start to play this weekend. It'll help take your mind off things."
I don't need to take my mind off anything. But okay, sounds good.
4 years later, Norm is a senior in high school. He still hasn't dated any girls, although, like any other kid his age, that is something he greatly desires. "Norm, honey, are you ready for me to take you to school?" "Yeah, I'm coming." "Geez, lady, I already said I was coming like 2 seconds ago. Chill out." "You know, we wouldn't have this problem if you just took your driver's license test."
What, so I can just drive to school in that old dump of a used car you gifted me on my birthday? No thanks.
"You don't appreciate me at all. I raised you all on my own after Dad left. I worked extra shifts to buy you the video games you want, a new car for myself so I can give you my old one, and even offered multiple times to help teach you how to drive. And you don't appreciate any of it."
Shut up, Mom.
"You don't appreciate me one bit and all that I've done for you. All you do all day is come home from school and play video games. You don't socialize, you're barely passing at school. What am I supposed to do with you? I accept you for how you are. I don't force you to do things you don't want to do, and yet you don't recognize me for how much I've sacrificed for you."
Boo-hoo, get over it.
2 years pass and Norm, despite slacking off tremendously in high school, somehow gets into university. He's still a virgin, but living alone for the first time away from his mom, something he's always dreamed of. He's paired up randomly with a roommate he's never met in his college dorm, named Chad. "Later, Stacy. It was a fun night. I'll text you." "Yo, Norm, some buddies and I are going out tonight for a frat party. Gonna be mad girls there, bro. Wanna come?"
Nah, man, I'm good.
"Bro, you really don't like going out, do you?"
Nah, man, it's just that these college girls are, like, so dumb, you know? Like, what happened to the good old days where women used to be women? All these girls care about now is how much clout, and I just have no respect for them. Here, watch this clip I saw on TikTok.
Understand that men and women are different, and men love women far differently than women love men. Men love women for real. Women love men.
Women love men for real.
No, they don't.
Yes,
Women
they
love
do.
men under the premise that they provide value. Men love women idealistically. Women tend to love men more from an opportunistic.
Oh, I get that, but like, it's not as bad as you think. No offense, but like, you don't really go out much at all. So like, how do you even know that?
It's called having eyes, idiot.
Oh, okay, bro. Have it your way. 5 more years pass. Norm is now working a 9-to-5 job that he hates. And although he hasn't exactly killed it with women, he finally lands a girlfriend that he now lives with, although she isn't exactly attractive.
All you ever do is play video games after you come home from work, and you never spend time with me.
Yeah, and you're still with me. What does that say about you, huh?
Excuse me?
You heard me, bitch.
Why are are you always so mean to me? It's because all of you women are the same. If you're nice to them, they don't like you. If you're a dick to them, they love you. That's not true. Why are you still with me then, bitch? I'm not. I've had enough. I've been seeing someone else since my needs aren't being met by you, and I'm leaving you for him. What? Wait, baby, wait, I'm sorry.
Next up, we're going to show an alternate universe where Norm was raised exclusively by his father. This will hopefully illuminate the difference between being raised in an exclusively feminine environment versus an exclusively masculine environment. It should be noted that Norm's father is a former Marine and thus very orderly, strict, and goal-oriented. Before we move on to that scenario, I want to break down a few things about the scene you just watched of how Norm turns out after being raised in an exclusively feminine environment. Norm's mother is an extreme example of someone driven completely by feminine energy and, as an extension of that, feminine compassion. She fully accepts Norm for how he is. She doesn't challenge him to a higher calling and loves him unconditionally. You might be left thinking after watching that scene that I personally believe this to be a bad thing. That's not true. In fact, I think it's a beautiful thing for someone to simply accept you for how you are and love you for being you. That said, in certain environments, that can absolutely backfire and be destructive and toxic. If we lived in a world where there was no competition, no conflict, no danger, no selfish interests competing against one another and trying to dominate each other, this would be the perfect way to raise your child. But the world isn't like that. It never has been. In fact, we are the descendants of a long line of humans who did the exact opposite of that and therefore survived, while those men and women who exclusively were driven by feminine energy were most likely not naturally or sexually selected for. So it isn't within our human nature to fully appreciate feminine love without the masculine. I'll get into more what I mean by that later. The fact that Norm was raised in an exclusively feminine environment did not at all prepare him for the harsh, cold world that existed outside of the proverbial nest. And because of that, in the real world where you need to compete for jobs, for women, for anything that you want, he was set up for failure by his mother. Norm, being an average male, has a natural temperament and inclination toward masculine energy. So it feels good when he feels like he's competing. It feels good when he feels like he's winning. It feels good when he feels like he's succeeding and getting better. Meanwhile, if he's just staying put exactly where he's at, it's going to eat him up inside. He'll become sad, depressed, angry, and frustrated at himself and the world because deep down he knows that it's not good for him to be too cowardly to ask that girl out, to be too cowardly to finally get his driver's license, or to be too cowardly to go out there and risk rejection in an attempt to connect with women and find love. Deep down, he knows that simply being accepted for who he is isn't going to make him happy and fulfilled, since it contradicts his masculine temperament. He needs something more. He needs to be challenged to become better. It's literally what he's built for, and a trait that all of his ancestors passed down through him through millions of years of evolution, through competition and survival. And so what happens when he isn't raised in an environment that challenges him? He completely folds when out in the real world, and instead reverts to doing things like playing video games, which psychologically gives him a false sense of challenge and accomplishment. And who will he unconsciously blame for making him weak and afflicting him with the debilitating disease we call comfort and unconditional love? His mother. This is why he hates his mom and increasingly becomes more and more hostile toward her as he ages. And as an extension of that, becomes more hostile toward women as a whole. Not only that, but by always being in an environment of acceptance and feminine love, he craves a challenge. He craves masculinity. And so, he latches onto a hyperbolic example of masculinity, someone who doesn't accept him at all for who he is, and in fact believes who he currently is pathetic and weak. Finally, someone who gets him. Finally, someone who wants to challenge him to seek greatness and not just decay and rot in a depressing web of comfort and mediocrity. We as humans naturally strive for balance in our lives. And when there's two opposing forces, in this case the feminine and the masculine, and someone is raised in an environment completely skewed toward one side, in order to achieve balance, someone like Norm will be attracted to the complete opposite. Someone who is more naturally inclined toward masculine energy, again, a run-of-the-mill stereotypical male like Norm, when pushed completely toward the feminine end of the spectrum in terms of his environment, will crave the complete opposite end, a very extreme form of masculinity, in order to reach equilibrium and achieve the golden mean, the perfect balance between the masculine and the feminine. This is my theory as to why so many men in the modern age gravitate toward more extreme forms of masculinity. Do you think it's a coincidence that the rising popularity of guys like this is concurrent with the rise of single mother households, and our society greatly valuing and teaching us as kids to simply accept you for who you are and not judging you, rather than the alternative to be highly judgmental of those who fail to live according to certain principles and calling us to a higher purpose and a higher mission in life. What I'm about to show you is Norm being raised in a hyper-masculine environment, and I'm going to spoil something here. In this environment, he will turn out much better than he did when being exclusively raised by his mother. Now, does this mean that being raised in a masculine environment is superior to a feminine environment? It depends. We live in a world now that's much more feminine than it used to be. For the vast majority of history, the environment was much more masculine because life was hard. If you simply sat there and accepted everyone for how they were, including yourself, you would probably get invaded and subsequently enslaved or killed. People needed to be hard and tough and more masculine and constantly striving for greatness in a world where weakness would naturally be punished by poverty, violence, and death. This mentality, however, became less necessary after the last great war of humanity, aka World War II. And so the greatest generation, after being forced to live in the most hyper-masculine of environments for years, decided to raise their children in a very accepting, feminine-driven environment. This was fine for a few generations, others might argue otherwise, but for a few decades there was true balance between the masculine and the feminine. I don't think it's a coincidence that people look at the 20-year period following World War II as sort of the golden age of America. There was a perfect balance between the masculine and feminine during that time, but now it's gone way too far to the feminine, where people are becoming weak from comfort and decadence, especially men. Because with women, their natural temperament is feminine energy, so a feminine environment where they're simply accepted for how they are without being challenged to a higher purpose will come much more naturally to them. Not to say that women aren't struggling now too, but largely their problems in the modern day are much more different than men's. That's a topic for another video. So all that said, if Norm lived in the 1950s, he probably would have been raised to be a more balanced adult if he was raised by his mother rather than his father, simply because the world at that time was much more masculine than feminine. However, nowadays it is much more feminine than it is masculine. So in a more feminine-leaning world, a more masculine-driven home environment will be much more conducive to raising a young man to have a great life. Here's what life would have looked like for Norm if he was raised exclusively by his father. Hey buddy, I got an email from your school that the first school dance is coming up. Are you planning on going?
Yeah, Dad. I even have a girl I'm planning to ask out. She's extremely beautiful.
That's great, buddy. Hey buddy, did you ask that girl out yet?
No, Dad. I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Are you scared to ask her out or something?
No, I just haven't found the right moment.
Sounds like an excuse to me.
It's not.
Quit BSing me, son. It's really simple. You walk up to her, you tell her that she's pretty, and you ask her if she currently has a date to the dance. Then, if she says no, you say, great, I want you to be my date. What do you say?
If only it were that simple.
It is that simple. You're just scared. It's normal. But it's my responsibility as your father to push you and motivate you toward things you want. So I'm going to light a fire under you. That video game that you keep playing all the time when you come back home from school, I'm not going to let you play it until you ask that girl out.
What? Come on, Dad. Mom would never do this. Why are you doing this to me?
Because Mom is fine with you being mediocre. She just wants to infantilize you and love you and accept you no matter what. I will love you no matter what, but I will never accept you no matter what. I want you to live a great life and become a strong, capable man. And the first step to do that is to face your fears.
Okay, Dad. Dad, I asked that girl out.
Great. How did it go, son?
Well, she already had a date.
It happens, son. Especially if she's as pretty as you say, those are the types of girls that get asked out first. Just make sure that you ask her out before the other guy does next time. Here's your Xbox back.
Wait, I get it back, but I don't have a date.
So what? The result isn't in your control, buddy. What I care more about is that you actually had the cojones to ask her out. I'm sure that for every guy that tried, there were 10 other guys that didn't because they were too scared. I'm proud of you for that, buddy.
Thanks, Dad. You know what? Hold on to that Xbox a bit longer. I'm thinking of signing up for something after school instead of playing video games when I get back home.
How about we sign you up for that martial arts class that my buddy runs?
You mean the one from a few years ago that you mentioned after I got bullied in school?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay, let's do it.
A few years later, Norm is in college, except this time he's the one escorting Stacy out. Later, Stacy. It was a fun night. I'll text you. Yo, bro, some buddies and I are going out tonight to a frat party. Gonna be mad girls there. Wanna come?
Nah, I'm good.
Bro, you really don't like going out, do you?
Nah, man, it's just that these college girls are like so dumb, you know? Like, whatever happened to the good old days when women used to be women? All these girls care about now is how much clout they can get on Instagram and TikTok. I have no respect for them. Bro, I get that, but like, it's not as bad as you think. No offense, but like, you don't really go out much at all. So like, how do you even know all of that? It's called having eyes, idiot. Look, man, be honest. Are you just scared to go out because you might get rejected if you try to hit on any of these girls? No, what makes you think that? I used to be in the same exact boat as you, man. I was so afraid to ask this girl out. I made all the excuses you could ever imagine not to do it. And then my dad just straight up called me out on it, and so I asked her out. And how'd that go? Oh, she rejected me. Well, damn, that sucks. Not really, because I'd gotten over my fear. And then after that, the next girl that I liked, I had the balls to ask out. And she said yes. And ever since then, I've asked quite a few girls out, and some of them reject me, and it does hurt my ego a little bit, not gonna lie, but it's all worth it when I finally get a yes from one of these girls. You don't get it, man. Even if these girls say yes, especially here in college, most of these girls are thoughts. They're not worth it. Here, watch this clip I saw on TikTok.
Men love women idealistically. Women tend to love men more from an opportunistic.
Bro, what is this trash? What do you mean? He's speaking facts. Yeah, facts for the average guy. The average guy is a chump. Girls don't like chumps. Dude, like, what would your dad say if he saw this video? Is this the type of thing he'd ever encourage you to do? Oh, do you not have a dad? No, just a mom. What about an older brother? No, just one younger sister. Oh, damn, bro. The only reason I'm doing well with girls is because my dad taught me how to be a man. I don't know where I'd be without him. So no wonder you're watching this cringe stuff online. You don't have someone in real life to show you the ropes. Bro, I have an idea. What's that? I'll take you under my wing, man. Show you how to ask out and talk to girls. Show you how to lift and get buff. And I'm going to help you the way that my dad helped me. I don't know, man. No roommate of mine is going to sit here in his dorm and rot, rotating between watching wannabe alpha male TikToks and playing Xbox while everybody else is out having fun. Get dressed, bro. We're going out. I'll invite Stacy and introduce you to her friends. But like, what do I say to them? What if they think I'm weird because I say the wrong thing? Who cares? As long as you got the balls to ask the girls out, you could always ask another one out if one says no. That's what I do, so you can do it too. Oh, also, you need to get more jacked, bro. My arms are like the size of your legs, and my legs are like the size of your whole body. That's a problem. But not to worry. My dad taught me how to lift, and now I'm going to teach you how to lift too. But we will start that tomorrow. Tonight, my friend, we frickin' rage. Get dressed. Let's frickin' go. Damn, okay. I'm kind of pumped now. Let's do this. A lot of what molds and shapes us as men is determined by seemingly minor events that occur when we're younger, usually in adolescence. And these seemingly minor events, in this case, Norm mustering up the courage to ask the girl out to the dance, ended up being the first domino that started his upward spiral toward becoming a strong and capable young man. That first domino, when he was struggling to push it over, his dad was right there by his side, encouraging him by any means necessary, even if it meant being cold and threatening to take his Xbox away from him to push that domino. Because he knew that even if his son hated him in the moment, he'd thank him later for caring enough about him to not let his son sabotage himself in the name of comfort and self-acceptance. A comfort which his mother was all too eager to give him. Whereas Norm's father would do whatever it takes for Norm to push that big domino forward, his mother was fine with him never pushing that domino. She'd be psyched for him if he did, but her love and acceptance for her son would be unchanging and unmoving regardless of whether he succeeded in pushing that domino forward or not. This is the fundamental difference between masculinity and femininity. Masculinity is cold, challenging, inherently violent, and dare I say toxic as well. At least that's the way that someone who isn't at all in touch with their masculinity would say. Femininity, on the other hand, is warmth, acceptance, healing. If masculinity was a cold blizzard, a crucible to test the limits of your will, then femininity would be the cozy log cabin with delicious food and warm blankets and hot cocoa by the fire, there to heal you and recover you from the harsh, cruel world outside. If masculinity was an ice bath, painful, challenging, cold, then femininity would be the warm towel you drive yourself off with as soon as you come out, or the warm, soothing hot tub you jump into afterward. Now, one might sound a lot more admirable than the other, especially if you're a more masculine-spirited individual, so it's easy to think I'm championing masculinity over femininity here, but I'm not. Imagine being caught in a blizzard with no reward of a warm fire afterward. Imagine hopping out of a cold shower with nothing to warm you and dry yourself off with. Imagine accomplishing something incredible and people not celebrating your victory and simply inquiring about what your next big accomplishment is going to be. Imagine constantly striving for greatness and never giving yourself time to appreciate your accomplishments.
Would you want to live in a hyper-masculine world devoid of femininity? Would you want to live like the ancient Spartans did, where every aspect of society, from the raising of children to the roles of women, were all contrived with the sole purpose of building the right environment for the perfect warrior? Conversely, by the end of the Roman Empire, people were living such decadent and comfortable lives that half of the year was basically a holiday and they barely worked and just ate grapes all day. It sounds kind of nice, but if that's all your life ever was from childhood to adulthood, it'll be quite boring and unfulfilling. But hey, purely feminine-driven men and women who prioritize living well over living greatly are more likely to be okay in this sort of environment than masculine-driven men and women who seek adventure and challenges. Because although masculine-driven individuals can live in hyper-masculine environments like the Spartans did, and feminine-driven individuals can live in hyper-feminine environments where everyone just sings kumbaya, it's all love and acceptance and peace, would you really want to live like this? Have you ever thought that there's some part of you that craves the masculine, the conflict, the challenge? In a modern world where life is decadent, there's no real threats to life that require ubiquitous masculine leadership among all men. And this absence of masculinity forces us to seek conflict elsewhere, usually frivolous drama in our relationships with each other, or stupid arguments over the internet about stuff that doesn't even remotely affect our own lives. In a hyper-feminized world of comfort, we seek out violence and masculinity in all of the wrong places. Because even though men temperamentally are more masculine, it doesn't mean they don't have some feminine in them as well. Same goes with women. If I had to take a guess, I'd say the average man is about 70% masculine, 30% feminine, while the average female is 70% feminine, 30% masculine. That still means that there will be a noticeable void of meaning and purpose for men in a hyper-masculine environment, and conversely, women in a hyper-feminine environment. You really think that the Spartan men were fully fulfilled in their lives, always optimizing for greatness and admonishing pleasure in the feminine? They undoubtedly handled that sort of environment better than women did. The women were probably an absolute hell in an environment like that. But still, Spartan society was definitely not the greatest life for men either, despite being a hyper-optimized, fully masculine society. Conversely, do you really think that a life with zero conflict and 100% love and acceptance wouldn't get a bit boring after a while if you were a woman? Women would be able to handle a world like that better than men would, but it wouldn't be ideal. And for many men, a world where they are discouraged and admonished for expressing their masculinity would be absolute hell. If we were to say that modern Western society is 90% feminine and 10% masculine, this explains why men as a whole are really struggling. If you're an average man who operates off of 70% masculine energy and 30% feminine energy, in a world that's 90-10 skewed toward femininity, no wonder you're miserable and unfulfilled. And if you're a woman who is 70-30 feminine, living in a world that's like 90-10 feminine, aka our modern world, life is pretty good. It's not perfect, but women have more rights now than they ever had in the history of mankind, and good for them. But similar to how life wasn't perfect for men in hyper-masculine environments that existed for 99% of human history, where life was bearable for men and honestly pretty horrible for women, now as humanity has quote-unquote progressed and comfort and acceptance is the norm, and life-threatening conflict has basically become abnormal, women are doing okay, but a lot of men are slowly dying inside. And so where do these men go? Where their quote-unquote toxic masculinity isn't allowed to express itself without judgment, the way femininity is allowed to express itself and be celebrated without judgment. They turn online. They turn to anonymity. They release their pent-up violence and aggression that isn't allowed to express itself in the real world and project it onto negative YouTube comments and Reddit posts and Twitter. They turn to guys like these. And not only do these guys not admonish them for their masculine side, but they make them feel good about it. The good, the bad, the quote-unquote toxic, instead of demonizing them for it like their society has. A masculine energy-driven man in a hyper-feminized environment will seek an excessive and extreme form of masculinity in an attempt to achieve balance. I believe that all of us, men and women, are striving for some sort of equilibrium. If your natural temperament, for example, is 70-30 masculine versus feminine, you will not feel fulfilled until you're at a point where your life is optimized for that. And so if we invert that number and you're in a 30-70 feminine dominant environment, you're naturally going to feel drawn to the complete opposite end of the spectrum to extreme forms of masculinity. This is why many modern men look up to guys like this. And whereas a feminine-driven person who just simply wants to be accepted for who they are completely shuts down and gets angry and confused when someone insults them for not being enough, Those who crave more masculinity are magnetically drawn toward it, like flies to a bright light. For the vast majority of history, men have been running the show. Now, I think it's still men, but less so than before, something which has benefited women as a whole tremendously, so, good for them, but it's really left a lot of men behind, and it's led them to be confused and without direction. This also explains why more traditional forms of masculinity are so alluring to many men now. What they don't realize is that there's a whole lot of BS that also came along with this way of life. But the alternative is not very good either. I mean, this modern form of quote-unquote masculinity, at least what's deemed appropriate by the masses, is this jumbled up, confusing, cherry-picked version of masculinity that conveniently contains all of the things that benefit women exclusively and very few things that benefit men exclusively. What I think we need now is a new form of masculinity. Not just reverting back to old traditional masculinity because that's all we know and that's all we're familiar with. Is traditional masculinity more ideal than what we have now in the modern day? Of course. But I don't think it's even possible to go back to the way things supposedly used to be. And I think a new way of masculinity and a new way for men to live and judge themselves by is much needed. It's needed by men and it's needed by women as well. Women are sick and tired of having to pick romantic partners out of a sea of men completely lost and directionless about their own masculinity. The modern guy doesn't know what it means to be a man. They don't even know what women want. They don't even know what they themselves want. They want a virgin housewife, but they also want to have a harem of women who will gratify all of their sexual fantasies they see projected on their favorite porn site. Femininity needs a new direction and a future as well, but it's not in crisis the same way masculinity is. We need a masculinity of the future. We need to take the best of the best in terms of traditional masculinity, the best of the best in terms of modern masculinity, and combine our heads to create a formula and a code for men of the future to live by. I plan to make that the mission of this channel. To not just assume self-improvement as how you live your best life as a man, but to question why self-improvement is important in the first place and what is it even aiming toward? If self-improvement is the how, then what is the why? Friedrich Nietzsche, arguably the most masculine philosopher there ever was, in terms of his writing at least, famously stated, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." This is undoubtedly true, and I want to actually sort of add on to that quote, so here's my personal version. He who doesn't have a why doesn't have a how. Too many guys focus on self-improvement, which is the how, and yet don't even know the point of why they're even doing it. Usually it's honestly just an attempt to quench some base desire like being more attractive to women or making more money. So let's say you attain those things. Does self-improvement just stop? Or do you continue to pursue self-improvement just to get more money and more women? Or is there something deeper, a higher purpose that's truly required of us to get the most out of self-improvement? And to get the most out of it, must we ourselves not understand exactly what we're aiming at? What it means to be a man? What it means to be masculine? This is just the first in many videos where I'll be tackling this topic of masculinity. It's important for us to understand why so many guys gravitate toward guys like this. It's important to figure out what in our society is causing guys to resort to looking at these types of dudes as father figures, where 50 years ago, every single one of them would have been laughed off of any stage or platform they appeared on. Are these guys the best we can do? Can we do better? Do we have to do better? Does the future of humanity itself depend upon us figuring out a framework for men to actually live by, to help lead both ourselves and women we love to a better future? I believe this to be the case, and I believe this is necessary. It's way bigger than just improving your own life as a man. Other people around you need you too. Your family needs you. Your future wife and kids need you. Society needs you. You are lost right now. I myself am lost right now. All of us men are lost, and anyone who claims that they know everything and they know the exact way out of this abyss is a guru who just tells you what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear. We as men need to work together to find a way out of this abyss, to create a philosophy of the future for men to follow by combining our minds and talents and working together. I want you to help me create this philosophy of the future. I've dedicated my life to this over the past 5 years, but honestly, after many failed attempts, I've come to the realization that I just can't do it alone and I need your help. I'm currently working on a book to help map this out for both myself and other guys, and some of the best insights I've ever had about masculinity have actually come from conversations with my clients, emails and messages from viewers, as well as conversations I've had with fellow content creators on my main channel. I want to create a space for us to talk about these things and for you to help me write this book. I'm planning on holding regular meetings, regular masterminds to help me write each chapter. And when I publish this, it's not just going to be by Kevin Ray Wilder. It's going to be by Kevin Ray Wilder and the Beyond Self-Improvement community. If you want to join me on this ambitious mission to creating a philosophy of the future for men to follow and live by, please consider joining me in helping with the creation of this new manual for men to follow. I'll provide a link to my Patreon in the description. Any amount of support will automatically qualify you to hop on strategy calls with me to help me with the creation of this book. You might be thinking to yourself that you aren't far enough along the journey yet to help me with all this. And to that, I'd say that you're absolutely wrong. Anyone at any stage of this life journey is qualified to help me with this, so long as you're committed to this and believe in the central message that masculinity is in crisis and we need to find a way to integrate it back into our lives in order to find meaning and purpose. If you believe that, you're absolutely qualified to help, and I will greatly benefit by having you on my side as we both try to tackle this monumental task of creating a masculine philosophy for the modern man and for men of the future. Some of my best insights I've come up with while strategizing with clients of mine who have not really yet achieved any sort of material romantic success yet in their lives. As a matter of fact, I usually get better insights talking to them because guys who have, quote unquote made it usually are pretty rigid in their ideology and their worldview because that's usually the thing that they believe brought them to the level of success there are now. So they tend to be a bit more closed-minded. So no matter what level you perceive yourself to be, whether you think you're just like a beginner with self-improvement or you're a noob when it comes to talking with girls and whatnot, or you believe yourself to be like Mr. Giga Chad, or anywhere in between, I could greatly benefit from your help regardless. And as a return for helping me with this book, I will gladly help and coach you through whatever it is you're also struggling with in your life as well, be it fitness, dating, financial freedom, or just life in general. It's time for a masculinity of the future, and I need your help in creating it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, where we will cover in depth exactly what masculinity is in the first place, something which we must identify if we're going to create a philosophy of the future for men to live by. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Together, we'll create a more masculine future for ourselves and for those we love.